Hi there, my name is Shannon Pennell. I live on Beaver Bank Road, and for 35 years I've been able to walk out the door and get the bus, which stopped on November 26th. And I just want to speak a minute today about the length that Halifax Transit did to cut North Beaver Bank off service. This included, of course, in the moving together. Beforehand, they did not find a place where they could turn around safely. They assumed the community center, which was not big enough. They then approached the ball field, which from May to October is not a viable place. So then the only place they could find to cut North Beaver Bank off was the fire department. As anybody could agree, turning in front of a fire department is not a wise idea. And to do this, they had to pay thousands of dollars for a fence, electronic fence that the bus could turn in. And not only did they have to put the fence, they did not do it until the third day after the moving together forward plan. So even though they had years to prepare for this, it came down to the third day into the new route. Also, we're 7 minutes up the road. This morning, I watched the bus idle for 11 at the Sackville terminal. So for those 11 minutes the bus is idling, it could easily kept going up our way and picked us up. And they also said that we did not have enough numbers, although I think it also looked at the population, because of course North Beaver Bank doesn't have a high enough population that transit wants, but we had a lot of riders from our end. And also, if you looked at, they say we're outside the urban transit service boundaries. There are other bus routes that are outside those boundaries that still have service. And they also said that our numbers weren't high enough. One, I'm not sure why they had to divide the route in half, because Beaver Bank isn't North Beaver Bank and South Beaver Bank. We're all one community. Halifax Transit is dividing us. And also, other previous routes, I'll name the 88 for one, did not have the required 25 riders per hour, yet they have great service. And we're really being punished. You've really affected a lot of people's lives who are now stuck, a lot of seniors. Of course, the Ivy Meadows Nursing Home, largest employer, people can no longer visit their family. And I think people who make these decisions really need to ride the routes, talk to the people, visit the community, and see the division that has caused between us. People south of Kinsack have amazing service now. It's great. And, if we all had it, we would all be jumping for joy. We longed to have a bus that we could leave on Saturday morning, because for years, our first bus didn't leave at 12:20. But now we're cut off from that. And getting to Kinsack is not an easy solution. It's a 7-kilometer walk with no sidewalks and roads, sides of the roads are never cleared. So I urge you all who work with transit, talk to the people. And the Moving Together Forward plan, it's moving together without us. I was like an ideal bus person. I purchased a bus ticket, a bus pass every month. I was always at the bus stop on time. I like taking the bus, but you guys didn't want me. So I was forced to get a car, and I'm no longer a transit rider. Thank you.
Thank you for expressing that. Next speaker.
Representing a gentleman from North Beaver Bank who could not be present this morning or this afternoon. My son, who is using your bus every day, who now needs a drive to the fire station, which is way too far for him to walk. I have to borrow my neighbor's car to get him there, and that is not always possible. So I guess he will have to miss his work, unfortunately. We moved to Beaver Bank 6 years ago, and having the bus service was one of the top reasons for moving here. My son works in Burnside. He at this time cannot rely on a drive from a neighbor, and he cannot rely on a bus service. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. The middle one, well, it doesn't really matter, I guess, as long as you push the button and the light will come on. State your name and address, please.
My name is David Barrett. I'm a lifetime resident of Beaver Bank. And basically, what I'm here for today is basically on transit. for Beaver Bank, and I just wanted to kind of bring you all up to date because I've had a lifetime interest in it. And that, number one is that we had a bus back in the wartime. Campbell's bus came out at, I know when I went to school, I had to be out to the bus at 10 to 7, and it worked until 50s. The people got cars and that, and the owner basically took the bus in, went to work, and brought the bus home at night. One of the main things I wanted to point out is that the city culture and the country culture is different. In the country culture, you make do with the funds you have available and the people that are available, and you make it pay, okay? And basically, all I ever got around, I got around hitchhiking. Everybody did. That was the way you did it. You basically knew everybody on the road. I mean, it was, from my house to Sackville was 2 miles and only one house. Anyway, but we grew. And teenage girls were hitchhiking and that, and people were coming from other places. So we as a community decided we should have a bus system. And we ended up, the province, if I remember rightly, $20,000 they had to do a trial bus. And they gave the contract to Halifax Transit. Now the word I got from Halifax Transit, what we wanted as a community, we had the villa up there, is that we wanted them to leave at 6 to go to Sackville, leave at 7 to go to Sackville, at 5 o'clock come from Sackville to Beaver Bank, and at 6 o'clock. And on the weekends, we wanted them to go at 6:30 to Sackville, and that, and 11:30 come home on Friday and Saturday night, so there wouldn't be people on the roads. Well, anyway, and this is where my cynicism come in. I was working a bit on the committee. I don't remember what exactly. I usually got in the middle of things that were in Beaver Bank, but I never wanted the leader. Anyway, here's a comment I got back from the grapevine about the staff on Halifax Transit decided that they were going to run the bus hour on the hour to Woodbine until the money ran out, which they did. Now, after that, we had a meeting in the community, and we basically said that was no darn good. And the objective of Halifax Transit at the time, if I remember rightly, is that they wanted to tax the whole community for services of no value. I remember Lloyd Gilby coming up and thanking me for being in South Beaver Bank to the fact that I supported them. So that was that. But we weren't getting the service that we needed. So Dave Merrigan, who was our counselor at that time, and the businesses, the senior citizens home up North Beaver Bank, and ourselves and a number of others, we put up a bunch of money. And Mr. Merrigan basically ran a bus service for us, which was doing the job and was paying the bill. But the thing is, there's so many laws. The bus broke down one day. Mr. Merrigan arranged for people, I think there was 20 on the bus or whatever it was, to take them out to Sackville. Now, I don't know who did it or what happened, but they charged them. They treated them as a criminal for doing something in the community. No wonder he lost interest. But anyway, so that we went along there, and then basically Halifax Transit ended up, and I had nothing to do with that and running it. But the problem in Beaver Bank, from my perspective, is that we have North Beaver Bank, we have the senior citizens place, where the, they literally get them to come out to get their groceries or something, they don't have anything. And they don't need that much, but they need a service that treats them. And then most people in the country, at least when I grew up, is that you made yourself fit the hours that are set. The main hours is from, I would say, from 6 in the morning and 7 in the morning to take them into Halifax, and that could be connected. And then the same with home and something for the weekend. So there's a need there. We don't want our kids hitchhiking.
Okay,
And
Mr.
by the
Baird,
same token, that
I have to stop you there. Your time is up. Thank you. I
Thank you
have to
very
ask
much,
how
Mr. Mayor.
many are here to speak on this subject, because we have a set time and we have quite a few. So I just wondered, are you willing to wait until the end of the meeting when public participation is normally? Or I'm just giving the members a choice as to what they want to do. You want to speak, listen to all of them? Okay, thank you. The next speaker, please proceed and identify who you are and where you live. You have 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Douglas Wetmore. I'm a resident of the Haddad Drive Street in Lower Sackville around the Stokel area. I'm one of the 2 co-founders of the Move Forward Without Me Twitter page, talking and collecting feedback from a lot of residents affected by the recent Halifax transit changes. At first, we thought these changes were just affecting our lives, and it was very disappointing to see that many others felt the same way. So we started this movement to collect feedback, listen to public across the HRM, and try to see what the common issues were. And I'd just like to bring forth some of the issues that we collected from a lot of public members that were unable to come out today. First and foremost, starting with the old 80 Sackville terminal, it would be promoted that the new 8 would follow the same route and run more frequently. However, in practice, that does not appear to be the case. The old 80 Sackville ran every 15 minutes during rush hour, whereas the new 8 only runs 20. On top of the 81, which followed part of the route of the 80, which also ran every 30 minutes throughout the day, being fully discontinued for the majority part of downtown Halifax. This has led to the 8 repeatedly running behind schedule, constantly being overcrowded beyond what the 80 already was as a major issue. This also affects the Mount St. Vincent University connection to universities within downtown Halifax, ever since the 18 was discontinued last year, and we were told to transfer to the 80 and 81, which have now been removed. Another common issue is with the new 82 and 85, which both service residential parts of Lower Sackville and Millwood. We've noticed that these 2 routes do not transfer with each other, which has essentially separated both of these communities. And whereas the old 82 connected all these communities together, and a lot of high school students from both Millwood High and Sackville High use them to transfer across districts, they are now completely unable to rely on transit and must either take one bus and walk for 30 minutes or just simply not take the bus at all. With the new 83 Springfield, we've noticed that there's a significant lack of service to the Downsview area, essentially cutting off the areas of the 83 from the main commercial district of Lower Sackville, and a lot of people find issues with having to transfer just to simply buy groceries or get to wherever commercial areas that they work in. And though the new 83 does service a lot of areas, which we'd like to respect those that now have bus service that previously didn't with the new 83, we do need to acknowledge that there is a lack of commercial connection for a lot of these residents. The new 84 and 87 significantly reduced the overall service that Glendale has received, whereas previously Glendale Drive received service every half hour with a direct connection to downtown Dartmouth and around the Highfield area and the bridge terminal. Now this connection is very minimal. A lot of residents have found issues transferring from the new 84 to the 87, and anyone that needs that downtown Dartmouth to residential Sackville connection has completely lost it with very little replacement. Likewise, though the new 84 is an excellent, well-needed connection for Sackville to downtown Halifax, it simply does not run frequent enough during the weekdays, and once every hour is simply not enough to rely on for those trying to get from downtown Halifax to residential Sackville off rush hour. I'll skip over my comments about Beaver Bank, as I'm certain many people and many more people will be talking about that today. I fully support them. We've noticed that the new 91 Hemlock Ravine ignores a lot of the downtown Halifax connection, and a lot of people have found issues with transferring, especially whereas the new 8 does not have the same amount of frequency as the old 80 and 81 had. And this is, as previously mentioned, lead to a lot of overcrowded buses and off schedules. The 90 Larry UTEC was expanded but was not added any service despite constant complaints from riders during rush hour that there needs to be more buses on the road or more articulated buses used. The 90 is consistently overcrowded and behind schedule. A lot of residents have had to either wait for the next bus or just simply stop taking the bus altogether because they can't even stand up on the bus due to there not being enough room.
Okay, so I thank you very much for your comments. That's your 5 minutes.
Thank you.
I'm really trying to stick to the 5 minutes, so I'd appreciate it if future speakers would do the same. Next person, approach them. Well, I was just going to acknowledge that MLA Horn was in the room, but I guess he can introduce himself. Oh,
Well, good afternoon. Glad to be here to support the Beaver Bank and Northern Beaver Bank in particular, where the last 7 kilometers have been cut away from their transit system. I've been out in Beaver Bank a number of times and recently, and I hear a lot of comments and talking about that particular transit stop.
while we may know you, the clerk
Okay.
is probably wondering who you are.
All right.
Say your name.
I'm Bill Horn. I live in Wellington, but I'm a MLA for the province of Nova Scotia for Waverley, Fall River Beaver Bank area. And been for 7 years, working on a little more time, I guess, until the next election, and I'm not planning to run again. So I'm here today because of the support that's needed for the community. And I have had some knowledge back in the 80s when I was a county councillor before HRM. That was an issue with the Beaver Bank Transit being formed by Dave Merrigan and went on for a number of years. It was very popular. And since then, the HRM transportation came, and it's been continuous for all these years. And then suddenly there's an issue of not going to the northern part of Beaver Bank. I guess probably because maybe the lack of numbers, but I don't know the details of that. All I can tell you is that as a MLA, I do also get comments in our office from the lack of the transportation going out to the upper part. A couple of the things that I've heard in some of my committees that I'm out there, in the awareness committee, is about the use of daycare students, young people, children, and their staff that go on a regular basis to, and are able to go to the Ivy Meadows to meet, socialize with the seniors at the Ivy Meadows. That's not going to happen anymore. The bus doesn't go out there far enough, and the daycare centers don't have transportation to take a large number of children out to see and socialize, not just at Christmas time, but in all times of the year. They'll go out on a general basis and just to socialize. That's an issue, and it has been talked about by the committee, and I'm not speaking for them, but they do say they would like to have that transport up to the northern part of Beaver Bank. Also, the idea of stopping at the community center is causing some commotion within the community too, with the bus having to turn around and make a turn there so they can get through and back out on the highway again. And that, as a result, has changed the dynamics of altogether of people that use the bus. I think that just it demonstrates, and some of the other presenters also demonstrate that the importance to them personally, and I'm sure there are more, and maybe there would be more if the bus decided to continue on. There's a lot of subdivisions in the area, probably several thousand people maybe with the 3 or 4 subdivisions past the community center. That I'm sure there may be opportunities for people to get more involved. I guess in closing, I felt it on my behalf to be here to support the community and support their thoughts on busing, especially where they've had the busing for so long. It's been almost something that is just expected now. So with this sudden change and not a lot of knowledge about that happening in the community until it did happen. So having said that, I will just close in saying I would like you would, if possible, consider different dynamics maybe for a bus system that may be able to be involved in the community in the future, if not sooner. Thank you.
Thank you, MLA Horn. Next speaker. Could he was called. State your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Nathaniel McIntyre. I'm the other half of the Move Forward Without Me Twitter page, along with my partner Douglas there. So, first of all, I'll start my timer just for your sake. So, we've heard a lot about the Beaver Bank and just how things aren't working in the communities. I'm going to skip most of that because you're going to hear that over and over again from all these speakers, I'm sure. Let's talk about the downtown connections for a little bit. So right now, to replace the 185 link, we now have the new 182, 183, 186, and those work really well if and only if you go during peak hours. Any other time of the day, your commute downtown has gotten significantly worse. So why is the link so important? So the link was a direct route from Sackville Terminal to Burnside to downtown through the McKay Bridge. It was about a 25-minute route directly from Sackville to downtown, and it worked really well. During peak hours, it ran once every 10 minutes, giving an excellent connection that way. Off-peak hours, it still ran once an hour, so you still had options in those cases. Now, to get from downtown to Sackville, you have 2 options. You have the 84 and you have the 8. The 84 is about a 40-minute route, so it's still 15 minutes slower than the link was. But the issue mainly is it doesn't connect to anything downtown. Once you get to the downtown area, you're still waiting an additional 10 or 20 minutes until the bus you want to take comes. So right now, the other option is the 8. I personally feel like the 8 should be renamed like the Tour of HRM because it goes a really long way to get downtown. It's about an hour and 10 minutes route, which takes the Bedford Highway to go from Sackville to downtown. So those options are significantly worse than the link, which again ran once an hour, even off peak hours. So you always had a connection you could reliably make to get from point A to point B within that time. So yeah, so basically once you get downtown, once you're downtown, you're waiting a while for your buses. According to the transit app, my best way to get downtown is from my house in Millwood to my school, which is St. Mary's. The fastest way to get there is to take the 8 and then walk from Spring Garden and South Peck down to SMU, because I'd be waiting an extra 20 minutes until a 10 or 13 came to save me and bring me to SMU. So the connections downtown aren't working. As we've already hammered home, the connections in the community isn't working because we've basically separated everything. Now we got Beaver Bank, we got Cobblecourt, we got Glendale, we got Millwood, and each of them has their own individual route with no connections that actually work between the route. So we've isolated the entire community. We've isolated from downtown. I realized what Metro Transit is trying to do. They're trying to make a transfer-based system. They're trying to make a bunch of short routes that you can hop on and hop off at any moment in time, and this works really well in bigger cities. The issue with Halifax, though, the buses aren't frequent enough to make that work. If a bus is just 3 minutes late, you're waiting an extra hour to wait for the next bus, which is the frequency of the 85, which is my main connection from Sackville Terminal to my house. So, yeah, so when I take the 8 from downtown trying to get to Sackville Terminal, the options are actually fastest to get to Sackville Terminal than walk home, because I'd be waiting an extra 40 minutes until the next 85 came because of its low frequency. So for those reasons, I feel like we need a more direct routes to get downtown that was frequent enough that actually connect it well, and I feel like the communities within Sackville need to be reunited and not separated in the current system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker, please. State your name and address, please.
My name's Bruce Gauthier. I live on Woods Court in the community of Beaver Bank. I guess I'm a relative newcomer to the area. I've been in the area only 15 years. The people I've met there have been 30, 40, 50, 60, and as we heard earlier, 70 years in the area. The community is very strong, and I think a lot of that strength comes from the ability to move around. The community is also an aged community, so independence is a big part of what, as we age, we all want to experience. The bus system, as sparse as it is, still works, so that people have the opportunity to go from point A to point B, and they didn't have to call on their neighbor or their son or their daughter or their cousin to pick them up and take them for groceries. We do experience a lot of in-house activities in the community. We'd like everybody to have the opportunity to attend these events. I'm part of the board of the Beaver Bank Kinsack Seniors Group, commonly known as the Keeners. And as a result of that, we do get the interaction with people from beyond the Kinsack area now. With that being said, I do have a letter from another newcomer in the area that I would like to read. I've lived in my house since June 2018. One of the advantages of the location was that there was a bus route close by. We have a limited income and sometimes need to rely on the bus as we don't have disposable income to always fix our second vehicle. We are expecting our first child in the spring of 2020, and I was looking forward to being able to utilize the bus route on the days I did not have access to my car. Now that the bus route stops at Kinsack, I have no access to reliable public transportation. This is infuriating, as the goal of public transportation is to extend the service areas to all the public, not reducing. I understand the ridership may not be significant compared to other areas, but completely remove a key service from a one-way road is dismissive of the Metro Transit towards a whole community of people. There is a retirement home at the end of the route who are now cut off even more from our community. The family, friends, community members, staff no longer have service to my Ivy Meadows. This is absolutely ridiculous. Cutting off access for a whole section at a community is never the answer. There are other solutions: a shuttle, running in peak hours, a smaller, more environmentally friendly bus, anything except taking the entire route away. I thank you for your time.
I thank you for your time and your keenness. Next speaker, who's equally as keen, I'm sure. State your name and address.
Ken Wilson, President Business Agent, A2 Local 508. I live in Timberley, Nova Scotia.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to come before the Transportation Standing Committee. I'm here today in support of the Beaver Bank residents on the removal of their buses. I have with me today a council agenda from 1996, which was talked about how to fund rural transit. It talked about rural transit being at a lower ridership base because it is exactly that, rural. It should have about a 40% recovery. At the time in 1996, we were over 70% recovery through the fare box. Mr. Riggi, the Director of Transit, could probably tell you today we're probably around 40 for the whole system. So what does rural have to do? Is it 10% now? Is it 30% less than the urban transit? I'm not exactly sure. But what I do know, and I know from experience because I've driven out in Beaver Bank, the community loves the bus. Does everyone take it? No. Why is that? It could be a possibility of numerous reasons. It doesn't connect with buses at Sackville Terminal, so it's inconvenient. It didn't run all the time on Saturday. It'd be a 12 o'clock bus. Students, teenagers going to work, it wasn't the best bus for them. But the people that did take it, took it and they loved it. I can tell you, picking people up, daycare people going up to the villa so they could see the seniors. It was the highlight of their day. There were pictures posted on social media just as the bus was ending with Halifax Transit operators with daycares giving cards and pictures and cake and whatnot because it was a big part of their day as students or preschool kids. So I struggle with how we can get this bus back. And maybe it's too late, maybe it's not. But I also know that this board mandated that the Route 91 come off of Ocean View after everything was put in place. This board has the authority to make a recommendation to council to find the money to continue this bus service to 7 kilometers. That's all we're asking you to do. Then if you get the money, put it on the residents. Give them a trial. Let them refill the buses. We did this with the Route 3 back in 2011 when they weren't taking the Manners bus. The union, the ATU, brought seniors down, and we asked them to take the buses. They did for a month. Eventually they stopped, and you guys cut the buses. But make the argument. Let the community get their bus back. See if they'll fill the buses. Interline it with a Route 8 so it's a connectivity to the downtown Halifax. Interline it with the Route 84. There's a million possibilities we could do. I sat in this very chamber 3 years ago and spoke to the whole committee of the whole about the moving forward plan and the concerns that we had as the union. Those concerns are evident today. Dartmouth is next. What's going to happen in Dartmouth? Are we going to lose service in Porter's Lake, in Grand Desert, and Seaforth because it doesn't meet the urban core? No transfer-based system will work outside of the urban core. It's not feasible. We have to come up with two different models. We can talk about the taxation changing in 2010. Before that, Beaver Bank paid for itself. The residents paid for that bus through the area rate. Once we changed the tax rate, we changed the whole system, right? We changed the game. And that's not fair to communities. There's got to be a better way. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Cleary has a quick question. Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Wilson, thank you. I think it was about a year or so ago, maybe just a bit over that, we were discussing the changes, and folks from the community came out down Purcell's Cove Way when the 15 was changed to the 415. Were you at that meeting representing the community as well and supporting them?
No, I couldn't make the meeting. Through the chair to the councillor, I couldn't make the meeting. But the same document, Councillor Clary, does talk about the 415 or the 15 Purcell's Cove being funded for evenings.
When the Moving Forward Together plan in my district cut the number 6 bus, did you come and represent the community then?
We came to the committee of the whole and spoke to council about all the changes, and we identified the Route 6 and the 15 at that meeting.
That was before the election when I got in, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't remember that. But, okay, so you didn't come for the 6 or the 15, just this one?
No, we came to the committee of the whole for the whole Moving
No,
Forward.
but I mean, when those routes were cut, because this was discussed then.
No, we
It's fine,
didn't.
so you didn't come for
Yeah.
those ones. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zarowski has a quick question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming in. And I do believe we've met at one of the meetings in the Canada Game Centre. Have you noticed this kind of thing happening in other areas, specifically District 12, where the bus service was cut? Is it generally speaking the same sort of trend that we're seeing in district after district?
In my opinion, and as you know, Councillor Rosowski, from attending the public meeting in your district that you put on, it negatively affected Timberley. Timberley lost service. They went from half-hour service to hourly. I can remember when I first started at transit, it used to take a break for 3 hours during the day. So if you had a doctor's appointment or dentist appointment at 11 in the morning, you'd have to get the 9 o'clock bus and be stuck at Lacewood till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When we went to half-hour service, it increased the ridership. We're back down to hourly service throughout the week, and I know it's impacting some of the residents out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Next speaker, you have 5 minutes. State your name and address.
Hi, I'm Mary Lynn Andrews of Beaver Bank, actually the county line property on Beaver Bank. I own a therapeutic riding facility, and I work with a lot of different individuals with and without disabilities. The bus cancellation out our way limits our clients participating. Anybody has to get a ride now. It stopped a lot of advantages for volunteers, employees. We work with the O2 program with schools, and the bus service was a way for students to come and participate in our program who didn't have access to a car. Other clients that we work with are individuals with different needs. They could access the Accessibus at the time that we had the bus stop at Ivy Meadows, because anywhere there's a bus stop, the Accessibus can go to within a kilometer. Now there's no bus stop within a kilometer of our business. We no longer can have that Accessibus as an option for our clientele to get to us. So in saying it, basically, it limits people with lower income, no driver's license, access to services in the area, not just mine, but others, the nursing home, the store up the road, to people who have to have cars. And it shouldn't be that way, because everybody needs to have access to our community. In saying that, too, with the Accessibus, any bus stop on the Beaver Bank Road that has been canceled, if your family member gets sick and they require the Accessibus to pick them up, say take them to dialysis, for an example, that service is no longer allowed, only to the clients that were pre-existing. But as we know, people who do get sick, it just happens, and we may need that service. Right now, anybody new who gets sick from that 7 kilometers is no longer accessible to Accessibus, which is a crime, to be honest. I've noted more teenagers also catching the bus, going independently and looking for work. Unless they get their parents to drive them, which their parents probably work, they're not going to be able to do that or participate in programs. Anyways, that's basically all that I have to put into it. It's important, and for 7 kilometers, I can't believe that they actually took it away from our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. You're good. State your name and address.
My name is Jean Bushell. I have a home in Ogilvie, Kings County, but I'm part-time in this area because of the 7 kilometers in Beaver Bank. My mother is a resident at the Ivy Meadows, so I'm speaking somewhat on behalf of family, family members of residents. You're not hearing from any staff of the Ivy Meadows because they've been asked not to speak, not to lobby, and unless they are also residents of Beaver Bank. So I guess there's no one able to be here on that, meeting those criteria. The first thing I want to address is the Accessibus. We have residents moving in, new residents, on a regular basis, of course. And the fact that someone would move into a nursing home and be denied access to Accessibus is, well, you fill in the blank. It's not okay. They have medical appointments to go to. Some of them have no family member who drives. Some of them have no family. Staff members will accompany residents on Accessibus to take them sometimes for an outing, for shopping, for a doctor's appointment. that may be the only time they'll get out of the facility. Without Accessibus, they will not get out. So other things I just want to mention, all related to the daycare. I'm part of a not-for-profit. Part of our reason for coming into existence was to try to lessen the sense of isolation, connect the community more. We were in conversation with school teachers to bring students in. We already have the daycare who came. All of that to bring in more people is very much threatened by this change. We had cub groups who came. We have the daycare. It wasn't just about socializing for those little kids. It was the peak day of the week for the residents. Some of the residents who didn't hardly ever want to come out of the rooms, they'd throw their doors open. The kids are here, and they would want that connection. It's universally known that old people need young people, and young people need old people. And they always will. Whether there's a bus or not, they'll need that contact. Staff, I know personally of one staff member, I suspect others have left the Ivy Meadows because they couldn't get to work. And they loved their work. They'd been there for several years. They were wonderful workers, and that one I know of for sure. There may have been others that I'm not aware of who have had to leave. New staff coming on. We have a lot of staff who will be retiring. They've been there a long time, very loyal and very caring, and who will replace them if they can't get to work on a bus. We're trying to bring in young workers, get them excited about working with the elders. Young workers don't necessarily have a car, so they will not apply to work at that facility, which makes it unsafe for the staff who are there because they're overworked, doing things that should have two people when there's only one available, and unsafe for the residents who perhaps will have a need and no staff would be available to come. A lot of our visitors are spouses, elders themselves. They take the bus. They may have a car, but they choose, because of their mental or physical condition at this age, they don't really want to drive in the winter. They're fine to drive in the summer. Or they may perhaps not give up their license when really they should, because they know then they'll never see their wife or husband or whoever. Young people want to visit their grandparents. They could come after school, hop on the bus and come. Now they can't. Maybe they could come with their parents, but maybe they're at an age they don't want to drive with their parents. I'll just return to Accessibus. That's crucial. Whatever else you do, please give serious consideration to continuing Accessibus to the Ivy Meadows nursing home. And I know there's one other thing here. Oh yes, very important. One of the elders who has been perhaps a lifetime resident in Beaver Bank that I've spoken with, he has a spouse who lives in the nursing home. He visits very regularly. Fortunately, he's still able to drive. Okay, but he did have a hand in the community transportation that was set up years ago. And it's his belief, but we don't know how to source this information, it's his belief that upon surrendering the community service to the Metro Transit service, there was a condition named and agreed to that the Ivy Meadows would be continued to serve, because that everyone knew that was crucial.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker, please.
I press a button. Everybody hear me? Great. Councillor Mason Smith, I met you as City Council adjourned on Tuesday. I wanted to come in and get a feel for the room, so it was great. Thank you for helping me out there. My name is Lyle Mailman, and I am a longtime Beaver Bank resident. I've been born and raised and just spent a little bit of time, a couple years in Bedford before I bought my first home and things like that and returned to Beaver Bank. I started on Facebook, the Beaver Bank Community Watch page. It started just as there were some break-ins and some trouble in the area. And in Beaver Bank, being suburban, you have your own little castle, and you kind of relate to your neighbors and things, and those that take the community initiative get involved in their community. But there's still those people that don't have the methods or the means to get a message. So communication has been an issue for Beaver Bank. So what the work that has been done in the Moving Forward Together plan since 2015, and the amount of volunteer hours and the tireless efforts of the groups that have gone forth and presented, and reading the reports and the staff recommendations and everything that I went through to go through and read this document, I assumed we would be okay. I assumed they're not going to cut that. No, it'll be okay. I had other things that I was dealing with, and so I allowed the other people to tackle that issue. They're tired now. They feel beat down. I thank each and every one of you on the Transit Standing Committee for your efforts and the difficulties and the challenges that are going forward with this Moving Forward Together plan, but we're moving forward apart. 7 kilometers. I speak for 5 minutes, add another 2. It's as long as it takes to connect the community that has always been there. The Beaver Bank Villa was a Royal Canadian Air Force radar base and was a community with homes and people living there. Ivy Meadows Continuing Care Facility is still that community. It still exists. It is the largest employer in Beaver Bank, and it's outside the urban transit boundary. So let's take a look at the urban transit boundary for Beaver Bank. Where does it stop? Where the Halifax Municipal Water Line stops at Tucker Lake Road. So are we lucky that the bus turns around at Kinsack at the community center? I guess we could take that. But the problem is, in 2010, after we built that beautiful community center, it burnt to the ground. So this won't be the first transit committee meeting I will be at representing Beaver Bank. This won't be the last. There's many more issues in Beaver Bank that need to be addressed in transportation, in infrastructure, in planning with the development moratorium. Things have to get moving in Beaver Bank. We have large-scale quarry operations in North Beaver Bank with trucks. One count over a 3-hour period was 98. And we're not just talking dump trucks. We're talking large-scale trucks with triple axles doing between 70 and 80 kilometers an hour. 7 kilometers, dimly lit, at night, walking down an unplowed shoulder to cross a bridge that has a sidewalk, but no sidewalks adjoined to it that are not cleared, walking on the road. Someone's going to get killed. We talk about Uber, rideshare, urban this, urban that, community ridership. So we can apply for a grant that's going to give us a bus to run 7 kilometers. How is that financially responsible? $66 per trip, per customer in the charts and the data, when our trip to Seaforth, Councillor Hensby's district, out to the back road is $88. That one is still operating. moving forward together hasn't moved forward together to Dartmouth yet, I guess, is why it's still in effect. We were supposed to have this service for another year. Another year. And the reasoning we have is a software update allowed it to be fast-tracked. We need your help.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? No. We have the other half here.
Originally, I wasn't sure if I was going to come over here or not. I'm a 40-year resident of Dartmouth.
And your name?
Lindsay May, 40-year resident of Dartmouth. But the reason I came is because I have worked in long-term care facilities and worked with staff, and my heart goes out to the facility out there because they're not allowed to speak. They could tell you a lot of stories, I'm sure, about the difficulties they have and dealing with staff. Volunteers, all the comments that have been made about volunteers and the involvement of children I can tell you about. I originally worked in Ocean View and I also worked out in Sackville in the rehab centre as well. So I've dealt with volunteers, dealt with people coming in to visit and seen the faces of the seniors when they light up. Family visitors, the difficulty that people have coming to see their families because they can't drive anymore. My husband and myself, we both picked up people when I was going into work. We'd drive somebody that couldn't drive anymore from downtown, and he tried to get in to see his wife every day, but wasn't always possible. Vehicles, which of course they won't bring up anyway, you know, because IV people are not here. The hours that people work in a nursing home and the difficulties of getting staff that was referenced by somebody that spoke. I've sat in the break room and I've said to staff, why are you driving your vehicle? You know it's not safe. You don't have your winter tires on yet, or you know. If you don't have access to a bus, then you get and you drive a vehicle that's maybe not quite as safe. Because if that's the day that your vehicle's breaking down or something's happening to it, they can't take the bus. And I have taken the bus when my vehicle did not work. Well, they won't even have that. They don't have that option. Sundays, sometimes we'd have staff members who would come in a bit later because the bus service wasn't as good. The staff that work long hours that maybe stay and do an extra 4 hours, so their day is like 20 hours long by the time they get on the bus and come in. I've taken the bus from Dartmouth out to Cobequid when I could not use my vehicle, and I'd hate to see that that was changed for that purpose, but for people out there to lose it at Beaver Bank is not acceptable. The Accessibus I'm shocked at, because in the facilities that I was in, we had used the Accessibus for recreational purposes to take people out, just take them out for lunch, you know, give them something different, and the staff would accompany them, or appointments, but it was used for recreation and for appointments. And obviously, if there's no Accessibus, I cannot even get my mind around that somebody would take that away from a facility like that. It's unbelievable. I didn't hear that when it was heard about it on the radio. But anyway, as somebody that's worked in those facilities on different areas and not knowing Ivy Meadows and not knowing the history, as I say, my heart goes out to them. You know, because the days you make adjustments because staff don't quite get in on time. And we used to drive somebody to Halifax from Sackville because her husband worked in Halifax, their apartment was in Halifax, and she came by bus. And she left in the morning at 5:30 in the morning to come out to our facility. So her day was long. She either worked 8 or 12-hour days. And we would drive it. And I kind of look around the table and I think, how many of you around the table have worked the kind of hours that those people work and spent that time on the bus and then come back the next day and work that same long day? The fact that you're actually taking something away from them, that they might have to walk to get down to the facility, or else, as the other lady said, there's younger people are just not going to do that. They're not going to come. And it limits the people that you can actually have working at the facility. So volunteers and staff and just general access. Anyway, as I say, I'm not from that area, but my heart just goes out to them because I think it's totally, totally wrong for so many reasons. And the fact that Ivy Meadows people, I know why they can't come and speak, because I could not come and speak on many issues when I was working because you're not allowed to. But anyway, I just had to come and speak on their behalf because of my experience. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. May. Are there any other speakers? I don't see anyone standing up. Councillor Outhitt?
And thank you to everyone who spoke. And Lyle, you should have stayed in Bedford, I'm telling you. And Jean, I haven't seen you since grade 5. It's great to see you again. I wanted to ask a couple of questions to Dave Riggi. I mean, obviously, I think Councillor Blackburn is working on the situation in Beaver Bank, but I wanted
Councillor Outhitt, could you do that after the meeting if you just want to speak to Dave on this?
No, just let me finish. I want to find out, we've heard all these people ask questions, and I'm wondering if we are going to get a staff report or response to these presentations, and when we'll be getting an update on the pros and cons of the 90 and the 80 with the issues we've heard about the crowding and whatnot, what's going to be done. And of course, Dave, quickly, you could just say about the high occupancy, high order transit reports is going to be coming, how that might be helped.
You're asking questions in response to something that's not on the agenda, so that's why.
I'm asking what our next step is as a result of hearing these presentations. We usually can put in a request for a staff report or a staff information report on what we've heard at a presentation. So
I think we will all be updated on that after the meeting. I think I want to proceed now with the rest of the agenda.
Okay, well, trying to get you answers, folks, but apparently I'm not allowed.
No, they will get answers, and it will go through the councillor that represents them. Thank you. You can ask for a staff report in response to. I'll ask the lawyers here telling me something. If you want to ask for a staff report in response to their presentation, well, no, you're asking Dave directly. Pardon?
Sorry. In accordance with the rules of procedure, I think the appropriate mechanism through which to obtain an official answer from staff would be to give notice of motion to request a staff report if you're looking for a variety of formal responses.
That's what I was trying to get across, that it's not on the agenda. But speaking of the agenda, and getting back to it,